Hello, YouTube. It is Russ Strock here. It is the 20th of March, 2026, and I'm really excited today. It is about 64 degrees, and the bees are out flying. I've got a lot of activities underway to sort of prepare them for the first flow that will occur here likely in another week or two with the soft maples, the red maples, the willows. We'll probably get some other spring flows too from an assortment of other early blossoming trees. But in these buckets, I'm starting to make some sugar syrup, 1-to-1, feeding that to the bees in a communal feeder. I've got other buckets here. I actually use the water from my spigot instead of from the faucet, so it's not treated with any salt or iron reducing stuff. I'm getting ready to make spring splits here. You can see all the gear. I got a new bee suit. I took off I had these empty boxes around some feeders on top of the hives when we had a little warm spell the week before last, but I took that off when it got cold again, and I left the bees to eat the sugar, the granulated sugar that was left in those hives from the mountain camp method over winter. So I wanted to show you today, again, it's about 64 degrees. I created this communal feeder out here, which is just the lid to a large storage bin. I've got a bunch of wood in there, and I poured the 1-to-1 sugar water in the bottom so the bees are able to climb up on the wood, get some sugar water. They're taking it pretty quickly, but there's a lot of bees taking that sugar syrup, and I put the additives in there, the amino booster as well as the Honeybee Healthy. I'm going to take a walk down to the bee yard now and show you the activity. Just a moment. Well, while I'm walking down there, I just thought I would talk with you a little bit about what's been going through my mind as far as adding different layers of insulation or protection to my hives over the winter. We had an absolutely brutal winter here in southeast Michigan with the polar vortex lasting, some 3 weeks, and lots of snow, lots and lots of wind. And I did not put any sort of blankets around, any sort of protection around my hives. I'll show you this bucket here as I walk into the bee yard. But what I did do is I put a number of windbreaks up. I happen to have an old glass panel here that I use as a windbreak behind this particular hive setup. But that's what they went through winter with. I did not add any sort of cozy, snuggly blankets around. I didn't put any foam boards around the hives. I also like to put some additional material on the top, not just to help with, prevention from blowing the tops off, but to add a little bit more of an overhang so that when the snow and ice melt and drip down, it doesn't drip right on the landing board. You can see all the activity today. Bees going in and out of this hive. This is how it went into winter, and this is how it came out, 2 double deeps. There is a shim underneath here, a 2-inch shim on the top of this second deep. And I put the newspaper down and filled that with sugar for the winter, and then I seal it up, and that's it. Windbreaks sealed up with sugar on top, and so that hive did really well. You can see the bees gathering the pollen. I have some pollen feeders out, and they just get completely coated. They look white going in there. I mentioned in a previous video, they look like ghost bees. Anyway, it's kind of fun to see them taking it. I'm in the process of trimming all these fruit trees down. That's a pear tree. This is a pear tree too, not trimmed. I got that one pretty well trimmed out. Here's one of my pollen feeders I set up, and I've just got soy flour, cornmeal 1-to-1 in that box with about a 1/10 by ratio of powdered milk and yeast. So another hive here next to it, doing real well. They tend to use those upper entrances more in the spring because typically the bottom deep is empty or close to empty. They get used to feeding on that sugar up there, and that's kind of the entrance they learn to use, during their cleansing flights over the winter and early spring. So I have a total of 10 hives, and all 10 of them made it. I got 100% survival so far into March now, and you can see here there is no activity at the front of either of these two hives, almost none. But what they are doing is using the back. And as I said, they get used to feeding. So here, and there's a lot of activity actually. They're using that upper entrance on both hives. And they get used to feeding this because, or using these entrances and exits because that's where the sugar is, up at the top. And by now the bottom deep is probably close to empty, and there's no reason for them to go through there. So that's another thing I need to address here in the spring, is to get them to use that bottom entrance again by either consolidating frames and pushing these down to a single deep, or maybe moving that bottom box on the top to give them more space. I am feeding them actively now, as I said, with the 1-to-1 sugar water additives and also pollen substitute, trying to get them to brood up a little bit here, for the April flow. These bees have just started using the bottom entrance again, but mostly they're still using the back, and I'm not going to go back there now, but there's another one of those entrances in the back from where they were probably taking the sugar. So all my hives, as I said, survived winter. And as far as concern about the wind and the wind chill, what I do is I use these moisture boards. It's not exactly a moisture board on the left there. You can see I've got some holes cut in the top so I can feed inside. But I use that board up on top of the mountain camp method, on top of the shim, and that's really the bulk of the protection that they get during winter. And they not only survived, but they did pretty well this winter. Overall, I'm quite happy with the activity. I've been in there looking at them, but I have not actually pulled frames yet. I just didn't feel like we had enough warm weather where I could really kind of go in there and move apart the brood nest. This one I do know is my strongest of the hives, and I went in there and I could see that I popped the upper box from the lower one. I could see that there was a little bit of brood in that lower box about 10 days ago. But they are out there gathering the pollen from the substitute I made, and they're also taking that sugar syrup mixture from the communal feeder I showed you. This is the last of my hives over here. And look at the bees going into that pollen, substitute pollen feeder. Look at the activity going into this feeder. I mean, these bees they just get themselves, they're gonna actually consume all that pollen. I put probably a half a pound of it in there, that substitute, and they're gonna consume all that in no time. And they're going in and out of this other hive again in this upper entrance. They're not using the lower one. I got a bee right near me. Go away. Anyway, she's gonna attack me. All right, I'm gonna get out of here. Anyway, I managed to get away from that bee without getting attacked. I'm still in the bee yard and heading back up to the house. But what I wanted to do really was just to explain, at least from my 10 hives, that I didn't wrap them. But I do believe strongly in the windbreaks. And I also believe that having some kind of additional overhang from the top really helps. We did go in throughout the winter and added a little bit of sugar, but we probably didn't need to add much sugar because while they ate some, they weren't getting low, but I just want it to be packed. I also think that sugar, which turns out to be 1.5 inches or 2 on top of those frames, of course, with a piece of newspaper underneath, I think that adds a lot of insulation so that the warmth of the hive, the nest, you know, kind of rises and hits that newspaper, hits that sugar. Of course, it melts the sugar so they can take it. And I'm back up now to that communal feeder. I'll tell you, just after a long winter, it's just so nice to see these bees surviving and, you know, actively doing their thing. You should be able to hear them buzzing. Anyway, that's my video for today. If you like the content, hit the like, subscribe, give me some feedback with questions if you have any. I'm going to probably be switching over to liquid feed inside the hives here really soon. Watching the weather, I want it to stay nice and warm. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this and good luck with your beekeeping this spring and summer.